Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the day 5 of Industry Expo 2k20. And I welcome you today, as today is the last day of this event. And it is today we are going to host an event about the varied aspects of the Indian publishing industry, and it is going to be delivered by Souhardya, who is an who is an Indian author, and he's been into writing and publishing books into publishing novels and what you can say writing articles about Indian history. So today is all going to be it's going to be something new. It is kind of if you are like if you love books, then you will also love this session because we have an author here, and he started this journey at the age of 16, and he was also featured on like various news channels such as NewsX, and it's a pleasure to have him. And over to you, Souhardya. How are you doing today? And thank you for joining.
Yeah, hi Omkar. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Yes, I'm doing fantastic. I hope you're doing fantastic too.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, and I'm pretty much excited also because I'm going to learn something new today, like from an author's perspective. So it is going to be really great, and so is the audience. The audience is also we have people watching you right now, so they are also excited to learn something new today. So we all are excited.
Yeah, sure. So, should I start?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, okay, fantastic. So, basically, if you're talking about the publishing industry, so my topic for today is varied aspects of the publishing industry. Now, publishing industry is a very vast term. It's a diverse term. Basically, because it includes a lot of publishing, like catalog from magazines, newspapers, and when you're talking about the book publishing industry, it comes the subdivision of the original publishing industry that's talked about. Now, if you're talking about the varied aspects, so what comes under these varied aspects are the various subdivisions of the book publishing industry that might include the three divisions that we widely known as self, traditional, and vanity, also hybrid. So besides that, we have traditional publishers to whom people find it very difficult to pitch. These are the contents for today. So basically, I'll be telling you some very good ideas or very good, innovative techniques on pitching directly onto the email of publishers that will get noticed. Because I recently signed up my first book with Rupa Publications India, which is one of India's most stalwart publications. And I have some techniques to give to the aspiring writers to make it easier for them to get noticed by one of those editors and publishing houses who are just going through the slush pile, or what they call that as the mail pile. So basically, if you talk about the publishing industry, according to the Wikified term, it's an industry or a branch of industry that deals with preparation. So these are the various stages that are present in the publishing industry. It's the preparation, then we have the production, then we have the publishing, and finally the distribution, the marketing. So if you're talking about the book publishing industry, the preparation might generally mean the author writing down his book. The first stage is for an author to complete his manuscript. The second is for him to either go through literary agents or go by himself, to directly to the emails of publishers throughout various parts of India. And when you get noticed by them, so that is the second point, which comes under preparation. And the third is the book sign up. So once a publishing house likes your manuscript, they'll ask you for more of it. They'll ask you to give it to them in partial, or they'll ask you to completely give the manuscript to them so that they'll be entirely reviewing it. So that takes time. It takes around 6 to 8 months of time. For that, I'll tell you about the other stages. The second stage is the production, where a publishing house, after it signs you up as an author, it'll be directing you to editing, then cover designing, and formatting. So these usually are a process of traditional publishing houses, but not really relevant in case of self-publishing. The third is the publishing, which is the launching of the book across various bookstores and distribution retailers across India. And the fourth is distribution of a book, which means the marketing and also the various reviews that a book can garner throughout newspapers, magazines, and weekly features, and various other awards and different other such tactics. So basically, if you're talking about publishing industry in general, as I said you earlier, it could be basically divided into two modern types. The first is the book publishing industry, and the second is the newspaper publishing industry, which is also popular nowadays, and that includes journals and magazines. So the newspaper publishing,
Souhardya,
yeah. Hmm.
can you just
Okay.
slow a bit? Can you slow a
Yeah,
bit
sure, sure.
because you are going it too fast? So just
Okay,
talk a
sure.
little bit slow.
Yeah, sure, 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 sure. Okay, so talking about the book publishing industry. So as I said you earlier, there are three main types of this publishing industry. The first is the self, the second is vanity, and the third is traditional. So what do you mean by self-publishing industry? Now, self-publishing is a broad term that is given to any kind of publisher, an author who himself publishes his book in his own name without the actual help, without the aid of any publishing house or any publishing industry, is called as self-publishing. So here, an author has the entire creative controls over his book. So he's his own reader, he's his own author, he's his own proofreader, his own author, he's his own editor, and his own publisher. Excuse me a minute. So the self-publishing, now if you're talking about self-publishing, now there are some very important things that you have to keep in mind. So the first is the investment that an author incurs, a financial matter an author has to undertake while going for self-publishing. Because in case of self-publishing, what happens is an author is asked to publish a book or publish a book on print on demand, the POD system, at his own risks. So he has to invest a hefty amount of money without being sure whether the book will be able to achieve all of it back in some few particular days. Because according to particular research, I found out that almost a lakh books are self-published in India itself. So this is, quite absurd if you're talking about going into the top stocks through self-publishing. So that is the biggest disadvantage if you're talking about going through self-publishing. But it has also evolved over the ages. For example, if you're talking about the investment of money in case of self-publishing industries, we have nowadays Amazon KDP, or the Kindle Direct Publishing. Another one is the Barnes and Noble. So you can also have your books out over there without the need for paying. You do not need to pay any advance, or you do not need to pay to get your work published in case of Amazon, KDP, or in case of Barnes and Noble. What they simply do is they take out your manuscript, they put it into their press, and they wait until an order has been placed for that particular book. So this system is called as the print on demand system. So the print on demand system basically works on two particular bases. And the foundations of this are, the first is you give your manuscript to the publisher. You upload your manuscript yourself to the portal, that is Amazon KDP. And after that, you see that your book, you design all the covers and all the front pages, the copyright content, etc. And your book is kept out on the Amazon marketplace. You find your book, you can browse your book through the Amazon, and you can find your book on Google and various other search engines like Bing and Mozilla. So what happens after that is one reader, once a reader orders one copy of your book, or either in the Kindle format or in the format of the paperback, so then Amazon tries to print it. So if you're ordering to paperback, Amazon tries to print it and then tries sending it to you. So no prints are done before an order is placed. This is what print on demand system actually means. So no prints are done before an order is placed, which actually means that a publisher won't incur any kind of expenses or losses on its own part if a book by a self-published author is not eventually sold. So I've seen lots of these books on Amazon coming up nowadays, which are self-published to Amazon, but have not really hit the stocks. Now, this is the most modern technique of self-publishing. So there are a few advantages of self-publishing industry. The biggest advantage of self-publishing is financial matter. If you talk about the print-on-demand system, because in the case of print-on-demand system, you do not have to pay a single penny to get your work published on top sites and retailers and distributors across India and the world. So the basic reason for this is Amazon tries to take, as I said you earlier, what print on demand basically means is you get an order for your book and then you print it to send it directly to customers who purchased your book. And Amazon takes at least 30% of its revenue from the book's MRP. Now, talking about the financial rights, why has it garnered an advantage? Because you have 70 to 100% of your rights on publishing. Now, last week when I was browsing through this press called Notion Press, they have a system called Express Publishing or Publishing Direct. So in case of Express Publishing, it is the system which is same to Amazon, except that it provides you a free copy of your book. But in that case, you own the 70 to 80% rights on return on each MRP of your book, although the costs are a bit high in case of self-publishing. Now, another advantage, which is very important in case of new buy authors or authors who are trying to earn their place in the publishing industry, is that self-publishing guarantees an author that his book will be published. Now, you write a book, you work on your manuscript for almost 2 years, I suppose, because it takes a lot of time to research upon your particular material if you're writing about non-fiction or even about fiction that deals with various historical aspects and cultural perspectives. So what happens is, in case of self-publishing, you do not have any chances of rejection, which means that self-publishing guarantees you that yes, your book will be published. It is going out in the stocks and people will be able to purchase your book. So your work is eventually rewarded, which is not the case, which is not in case of traditional publishers or even in case of vanity publishers, because their financial matters matter so much. Now, if you're talking about the publishing process and the publishing duration, also an advantage over publishing duration too. In case of self-publishing industry, as I have often observed, I published my first 2 books through Amazon KDP, to be very honest. Now, you take some 2 to 3 days to 1 week for getting your work published and out worldwide. So this is the biggest advantage of self-publishing industry, which is that you do not have any restraints, you do not have any time constraints on your work. Another advantage is, as I said you earlier, the creative control. Now, what do I mean by the creative control? You are the author of your book. So you write down the book, you do the editing part yourself, you do the proofreading, you choose your own cover, you design the book yourself, you choose your own illustrations, and you send out the book for publication. But in case of other publishers, what happens is you have a different person for editing. You have a different person for cover designing. You have a different person for illustration. But in self-publishing, an author can do it all by himself. Eventually, you are your own distributor and you are your own marketer, because it depends upon you as to how much your book is going to be found across worldwide platforms and across media networks. Next is, as I said you earlier, self-publishing also provides you a chance to create a hit. Well, although the chance to create a hit through your first self-published work is very less, but you can really make some really names, through self-publishing industry. For example, when I first published my work, which was on Ramayana in the poetry format, the second was on Ramayana the drama format, which is called the Sign of Suryavansh, and the second is called the Chronicles of Suryavansh. So what eventually happened is I got awarded the fellowship of the Royal Asiatic Society of London, which really did help me, in the later stages to find research materials and to gain a wider access and a wider introspect into the various cultural and the historical features of our country, as well as the cultural relations it shared with the others.
Souhardya,
Yes.
do you have a PPT? Do you have a PPT?
Actually, I'm doing on my iPad, so I do not think there is any option for screen sharing over here.
Yes, yes, there is. There is. You just have to share the screen option. There is a share screen option. You just do it.
No, it's not working from iPad. I saw it yesterday. It's from tablet or I'm sorry, it's from laptop or from desktop. I'm doing it on a tablet.
Oh, okay, you are doing in the tablet. Okay, okay, okay. Continue, continue.
No worries. I do not have much to show in the PowerPoint. It's just the written the points. Okay. Okay, so talking about the self-publishing industry, so once you get a hit, once come to recognize that you are going to do something in this industry, and this is when you are picked up by brick and mortar publishers, which are traditional publishers. But it is very rare and is almost considered an invalid point. Now, one example of a book that did really a lot of hit through self-publishing was the 50 Shades of Grey, which is a very popular book nowadays, Now, there are, of course, disadvantages to self-publishing too, which are, in fact, many. The first disadvantage is self-publishing. There are various readers who have their own choices of choosing books when it comes to publish, and publish is a very important thing when you're writing book as a new author. Because when they find you're writing book, you're self-publishing your book, various readers do not like to pick up that book. As a result of which your distribution remains low and your readership quantity remains really, really down. And this creates a bad effect on the author, as it happened for me too, because the first book did not sell well. Anyways, I got some good ratings though. But you also have a great advantage, as I called you earlier, and around 60,000 books are self-published each year in India alone. So imagine how much of that would be published in 1 year. Now, manuscripts which are self-published are not given a final touch by a renowned editor or by a person who is well versed in self-publishing, or maybe in your topic. Now, in case of traditional publisher, you have qualified people who would like to go through your manuscript before getting it out onto the market. But in case of self-publishing, you do not have anything of such. So you are your own author and you are your own editor. Now, once you are the author, you have your own viewpoint into what you have written. As an editor, you would not like to change that except for very severe circumstances. And this is why often people consider, as per ratings by the Wall Street Journal, we found out that self-publishing books lack both factual and grammatical terms, which is when there is a really messy impression in front of the readers. Now, the third point is self-publishing book is really a huge investment for an author. It's a risk, actually, an economic and a fiscal risk for an author if you're not coming from a very stabilized financial background. Because once you publish your book, you incur all the cost expenses for the cover designing, for the illustration, for the ownership of the copyright materials, for the ISBN numbers, and etc. Which is when you waste a lot of your money without even a guarantee of even 1% on your investment. Now, if you're talking about the traditional publishing, so self-publishing comes before that. Now, traditional publishing, if I'm going to second point, give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Traditional publishing is nowadays, as people quote, the most revered and the most talked about publishing procedure in the entire publishing industry. So you understand by this what this means. Like, this is basically something that bridges the gap between a reader and an author. So publishing industry or publisher is what bridges the gap between a reader and an author. It is what you require as an author to get your work distributed to a reader. Now, basically, if you're talking about the traditional publishing industry, as I said, you in self-publishing industry, there are names like Amazon, KDP, Barnes and Noble. There is Notion Press, Express Publishing, Direct, etc. In self-publishing, you have very rare. In traditional publishing, you have very rare publishing houses that go by traditional means. For example, these are the most stalwart publishing houses in India and abroad, and they do not generally, I repeat, they do not generally like to take new by authors, except that in very rare circumstances. Now, if you're talking about the Union Square Publishing, so Union Square Publishing is a website that has quoted down a very important line regarding traditional publishing. This is what most authors deal with. So traditional publishing is less of a partnership between the writer and publisher and more of a business contract. In fact, the wise author will take time to get a clear understanding of the rights and benefits of the contract. So this is what matters. Once you send out your manuscript and a traditional publisher finally accepts it, it understands that you have good work to give to them, you have a good work to give to society, to the publisher, or to people as a whole. So they try to put you into a contract. And as the Union Square Publishing website says, a wise author will take some time to get a clear understanding of the rights and benefits of the contract, which is really very important since it deals with legal matters. So if you're talking about some well-known traditional publishers in India, I would like to give you some names listed down on the Times of India website. So here are some: Penguin Random House India, Rupa Publications India, along with Aleph Books, HarperCollins, Hachette, Bloomsbury, Simon and Schuster, Westland, Jayco, Rowley, Scholastic, and Pan Macmillan India. So these are the top publishers, that publish traditionally in case of India. Now, what are the basic advantages of publishing traditionally? Of course, as I said you earlier, traditional publishers have got disadvantages too, because they do not have creative control over their book. They do not have a very good royalty amount. But then there are lots of advantages in case of traditional publishing, which is why people prefer to take up traditional publishing nowadays instead of self-vanity. The first big advantage is traditional publishers are usually the most renowned names in the publishing industry, and they have brought out huge authors. They have brought out blockbuster books, which is when, if your book is brought out through traditional publishing means, you get a chance to stand amongst the elite group, or as Amazon calls them, the bestseller lists, which is when a person or a reader will notice a book coming out through traditional means. And this is what it matters to you as an author. He will notice that his favorite publisher, suppose I'm talking about Rupa, so people will notice that Rupa is bringing out a book of a nearby author. So they'll generally be inquisitive to learn to read the book by an author whom they have never read before. And this generates sales or revenues for you, and also creates a ranking spot for you, which is not usually done in case of self-publishing. The second is, when you go with traditional publishing house, you have a dedicated team of experts who back you up. In case of traditional publishing houses, which are usually the most respected, you have an editor, you have an illustrator, one of the India's finest illustrators. You get her or him and working with you, so you get your book furnished or polished to the best quality that can be given. In case of self-publishing, you have creative control over your book, but that does not mean that you are a good illustrator as well as you're a good author. You might be a good author, but illustration is something that depends on illustrators. In traditional publishing, this confusion is totally muzzled out. Now, also in case of traditional publishing, awards are a very big important thing. If you're talking about awards, like if I give you some examples, the Gyanpit Award, the Sahitya Academy Yuva Puraskar, then if you're talking about the Crossword Booker Awards, so all these awards are given to books that are published traditionally only through various publishers that have earlier won these awards, because self-publishing can be done very frequently, and basically, to be very honest, these books are not considered for any kind of awards, accolades, or laurels throughout India, or maybe even the world. But in case of traditional publishers, you have a very high chance of getting noticed by the awards committee and getting your book reviewed without you even actually standing up for your book. Now, there are few readers who refuse to read self-published books. This is not my opinion. It has been quoted down. There are few readers who have a stigma against reading self-published books. But what they feel is these books contain grammatical and factual errors and are not eventually meant to be as accurate as traditional publishing books are. So, which leads them to believe that self-publishing books aren't of the high quality as the big name publishers. So publishing traditionally can help an author avoid this stigma and get their books in front of as many as readers as possible. Now, traditional publishing is indeed a very difficult task to achieve. Honestly, myself as an author, I have got rejected almost 4 to 5 times by traditional publishers before I got this manuscript selected. So the best thing to keep in mind is to pitch, is to have a right pitch for getting noticed by traditional publishers or by editors. So what you can do is you have 2 separate ways to pitch. The first is through a literary agent. There are various literary agents in India, like Labyrinth Literary Agency. There is the Red Ink Literary Agency, and so you could go through them. So what initially happens, what the procedure is, I'll just tell you in a few minutes. In case once you finish writing a manuscript, you have to send in 3 sample chapters along with a brief synopsis or an outline of your work to the literary agencies. If you're talking about literary agency, you have to send it to the official mail ID, which is generally specified on most of the agencies, websites. Now, once you send in a mail, they'll try to review it first. They have dedicated team of editors backing the literary agencies up. So they'll try to review it first, and they'll try to find out whether your material is suitable to be included into the big houses or not. Now, once they try and understand, there comes out 2 circumstances. It goes like a flow chart. So you have a no or you have a yes. In case you have a yes, they'll try to ask the entire manuscript from you, as a result of which you have to give it to them. And then they'll try to read that entirely in detail and they'll try to analyze it, they'll try to edit it, and ultimately they'll pitch it to publication houses that they think would like to take on your genre. So what usually occurs is, now if you're talking about the various publishing industries present in the various publishers, so business books are not published through all publishers. In case you write a business book, the agencies will determine which publisher suits you best. In case you write a historical fiction book, they will determine it for you which publisher suits you best. So which is why I advise you, a new by author, going with any kind of literary agencies throughout India, because that is the best way you can to avoid any direct rejections from publishing house. Now, even if you ask yourself that I'll be sending it directly to the publishing editor, so there is a separate step for that. You go to publishing house's website, you will find out a list of tips that have been given to you to mail it to them. They also have a dedicated email address to receive the mails that and the pictures and the manuscripts that come to them. But the thing to note here is they receive almost 100 manuscripts in 30 days, which usually becomes very difficult for the editors to review and to reply to each one of them individually. Now, to ensure that you are one of them replied to, you usually have to have a very strong pitch, which usually occurs. The first process what you want to include in your mail is a query letter. A query letter is something that indicates an elevator pitch, which is one-page summary of your book, along with what your book deals with and what we call USP. So what is USP? USP is an acronym for USP is an acronym for why your book should be really selling. You know, the unique selling point. What is the unique selling point of your book? For example, when I had to tell my own USP to publishing editor, he asked me as to what kind of other books, what comparative titles are there in the market at present, and why I think my title suits better than all of these. What is new? What is unique in my title? Why would people purchase my title? So traditional publishers first see their own profits in case they publish your work. If you're writing something that already exists, it is quite not advisable to go with it. However, you might go with it because you might find out a new dimension, which usually occurs in cases of non-fiction. But in case of fiction, I would strictly advise not copying plots of any particular book and going with that to any traditional publisher, because that creates a very bad impression. The second is you have some information about yourself and your background, which is generally your CV or resume. Now, what you have to do is you have to include all these details which are related to your writing career. You just do not want to include where you had gone for entrepreneurship or maybe anything like that, but you should include what you are presently doing and why you got interested in writing on this particular topic, which is when an editor feels attracted to your work. And the third is the book proposal. So a book proposal usually consists of, as I earlier said, it is quite similar to the one that you send out to literary agencies. It consists of 3 sample chapters or 10,000 words, whichever is larger. Once you attach the 3 sample chapters, you have to attach another page that deals with a chapter-wise analysis. You have to name each of your chapter. You title them carefully. You have to briefly explain what each chapter deals with and why this is important in the plot of your book. Another page should deal with the synopsis or the summary or the plot that has been usually been written down in your book. Now, in this case, various new by authors who asked me as to whether they should include the ending. Yeah, of course, you should include the ending of your book as well, because then an editor will be able to understand how the entire journey of your writing shall be going. Now, there are 2 different cases for here too. In case of fiction books, you need to include 3 consecutive chapters, chapter 1, 2, 3 to be exact, because you do not want an editor to divert from one chapter and just burst down into any other one. So, for example, if you're talking about fiction books, I write the first plot, which is chapter 1. Then if you add chapter 6 to it, this creates a really messy impression for the editor, since it feels that you are not well organized in case of your plot structure. The second thing to be remembered is in cases of non-fiction books, you need to include any free chapters, because non-fiction books generally deal with factual data and analysis, which is when they'll observe any free chapters and they'll see it whether you have a strong emotion behind your writing, whether you know what you're writing, whether you understand how people will understand your writing, and whether you have proper sources to back up your writing. You need to provide references for non-fiction writing. You just cannot write down anything you want. So this is when you should send in your manuscript. Now, after you send in your manuscript, the process that occurs usually takes a very long period of time in case of traditional publishers, which is why I advise impatient authors to go on with self-publishing. Because in case of traditional publishing, after sending in the proposal, you usually need to wait for almost 6 months to get a reply to it, even if you do. Because in case an editor does not like your proposal, he or she will never send you an email, which means you will never understand whether they liked it or whether they just rubbed it off. So this is when the biggest disadvantage of traditional publishing lies in here. An author who's been aspiring to publish traditionally for almost years after years, so he gets rejected untimely, but he is not informed of his rejection letter. And then there is another process, which is if the publishers or the editors like your work, they will ask you to send in a complete manuscript or a partial manuscript when your proposal is admired. So this is generally, very rare in case of traditional publishing houses, because the people sitting there, they generally consider emails as slush pile. So what is meant by slush pile? Which is thousands of unread emails per day. Now, they do not get exact time for reading this. Now, to be very honest, what I learned from traditional publishing houses is the ones who sit in the email, the ones who check the emails are usually the interns, Now, once they like your proposal, they'll ask you to send in your entire manuscript or the partial manuscript that you have ready for publication. Now, once they review that, they will be asked to report to their editor and to make them assured, to make them guaranteed that this will be a blockbuster, or else a traditional publisher won't likely take up your work in the first hand. Now, another thing to keep in mind is even after you send in the entire manuscript, you will need at least 3 to 4 more months to get a reply after the entire evaluation of the complete manuscript. So this has taken around, suppose 10 months in total, if you're talking about 6 months for the proposal overview and 4 months for the entire manuscript overview. Now, after that, if they like your manuscript, they'll have a deal or a contract, as I said, according to the Union Square Publishing, which they call that wise author should be very careful when signing a contract. So, well, when you sign a contract, after that, your book enters the publishing queue. Now, what is a publishing queue? A publishing queue is a long line, a long chain of books that stand one after another in signed contracts. This might extend up to 1 year or even 1.5 years. So, publishing of your book will take around 12 to 18 months, which is a big disadvantage of traditional publishing houses, because they have got huge workload. They have got dedicated team of experts behind them who will be looking after your book, and all these procedures will entirely will ultimately take you around 12 to 18 months to get your work published after the selection is done. So that is all I should tell you about traditional publishing houses. Now, there are some disadvantages that have been noted down by traditional publishers. Yesterday, when I was going through an article, I found out, and also hilariously wrote, that getting published traditionally in India is like climbing Mount Everest without oxygen for first time author, but it's not like that though. But traditionally published authors do not receive 100% of their royalties. This might sound awkward, but to be very honest, they do not actually receive around 30 to 40%. The best case for a traditional publisher, for a traditional author, would be to expect around 10 to 11% of royalties on a paperback edition, if that be the maximum. In case of a in case of a new buy author, it's around 5 to 7.5% paperback for first-time authors in India, and 10% for ebook and hardcover. Sometimes this might extend up to 15 to 20%, but in the best possible cases, which are usually for authors who sell 1 million copies. Now, when a new buy author signs a book deal, as I said you earlier, in the publishing queue, your book is typically placed at the end of the publisher's publishing lineup. And this means this can take you around 12 to 18 months for your book to finally arrive on shelves or even get published. And the third is breaking into or just making a mark in the Indian publishing industry is really difficult. I'll be very frank with you, with the aspiring writers, because writers often face dozens, if not thousands or hundreds of rejections. Various authors have faced lots of rejections in the early stages of their life because publishers do not intend to go with an unrecognized author, usually because of the risk of guarantees on their investment. Now, traditional publisher will never take a single penny from you for publication, but they'll publish it under their name, which is usually a stalwart name. Now, this creates a huge, risk on guarantees that have to be returned to the traditional publisher, which is why it won't like to go with a person or a book that has been earlier written, an idea that has been not clearly embodied in the book, or someone who has not clearly understood what he's writing. So usually you need to have very good knowledge of what you're writing and what you're trying to express, because writing a traditionally published book is not, to be very honest, it's not a child's play. Now, these are the main disadvantages of traditional publishing houses. Now, we have another publishing houses which has been really made in the recent times. So it's called vanity publisher or hybrid publishing house. Now, you guys must be familiar with this term, the hybrid publishing houses, because vanity publishing house, as we call it, hybrid, which generally means it has the characteristics of both traditional publishers as well as self-publishers. Now, how does it differ from self-publishing? Basically, vanity publishers publish a book. They take the book from the author. They take expenses from the author, which is quite similar to self-publishing, but they publish the book under the name of the publisher. In case of self-publishing, you will find that you are your own publisher, which is called independent publishing. But in case of vanity publishing, you will have the publisher publish the book for you, which is not independent, which is usually something good, when you're talking about getting recognized as an author initially. Because people will find out that you have not published your book independently and that someone else has published your book, although it be vanity. Now, but the biggest disadvantage is they invite the authors to send in their manuscripts, and then they charge them a fee or a co-payment to assess and to publish their book. Now, various authors and publishers and various websites usually consider this as as a scam, since vanity publishing is something that is also called as subsidy publishing. Well, Sushil has asked me a question: how to select topics for a book? Well, so this is a very good question, Sushil, especially for a newbie author. Now, if you're talking about selecting topics for your book, it is usually done in two different stages. The first is you should research on which genre you suit the best. So there are various genres. If you're talking about publishing world, for example, there is the crime thriller, there is historical fiction, then there is the romantic genre. Now you need to understand which genre suits you best. You need to research a lot on that. And after that, if you're talking about topic selection is simple. You need to know what you want to express to the world. You just can't pick up one simple topic that you see on the net or about which people have been widely talking about. You need to have a certain bit of knowledge on that. You need to refine your knowledge first. You need to have a great deal of research into selecting topics for your book. Now, if I tell you about my book, the upcoming book that I have signed up with the traditional publisher Rupa, is based on a topic from Mughal India, which is where it talks about Akbar, Adam Khan, and Bas Bahadur and Rukmati, usually the annexation of Sultanate of Malwa. So where did this come from? Now, how did I select this topic? This is what you're asking, Sushil, right? So, if you're talking about selection of a topic, you will get your idea when you're reading books. So the basic thing is to read. Various authors like Devdutt Patnaik and Amish Tripathi have always stressed on this fact: you need to read to learn, and then what you need to express in a book is usually your own opinion into the happenstances that occurred back then. After that, what is more important for writing down a book is, in case of historical fiction, if you're talking especially, you need to have a good deal of vocabulary to understand the various terms that are associated with writing down your book. Because if you're trying to write down a historical fiction, or even if you're trying to write down any crime fiction or thriller, you need to understand how it works. So visualization and vocabulary are very important for an author. When you're trying to write down something, you're trying to visualize it. As you're visualizing, you're trying to understand what is exactly happening in the plot that you're writing, and this creates a good impression for your reader as well as for you, which is when things occur, like which is when you get the exact way to you get the exact smoothness that you should in writing down the rest of the plot of your book. And so if you okay, so I think that solved your doubt, Sushil. Now, if you're talking about the
Yes,
vanity
yes,
publishing,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
you can.
definitely. I hope that Sushil, your doubt is cleared. So we have one more question from Sushil. He's asking how to become a good content writer.
Okay, so Sushil, content writer and writer are two entirely different professions. Because if you're talking about being a content writer, you need to understand your employment first. You need to understand the person whom you're signing deals with. So, for example, if you're writing content for a particular magazine or for a web portal or a blog, content writing for a blog, then you need to understand what the niche is, whether it is technology, whether it is healthcare, or whether it is similarly like suppose sports or art and culture, etc. And you need to research on that first. So content writing is different and book writing is different, because in cases of book writing, usually fictional, you deal with a single plot. In case of blog writing or content writing, you have to supply 2 to 3 write-ups daily, which does not usually fall under book publishing industry. Now, how to be a good content writer? Shreya Patta, one of my friends from LinkedIn, she's one of India's top content writers. Now, she said that one day you need to, in both these cases, you need to have a very good expertise over your own over the fact that you're trying to express. But in case of content writing, research is really important, because if you're writing about technology, you need to understand first what you're writing. Suppose you're writing, I'll just give you an example. YouTube recently introduced a program called YouTube Shorts, which envies the TikTok version that was banned in India. So, as a content writer writing for technology for a particular blog, you need to get updates on that. You need to understand first what this buzz is all about, what YouTube Shorts is all about, and you need to opinion it yourself. And then you need to put that down, and then you send it to whatever blog or whatever magazine you're writing for, web portal you're writing for. So this is when you aspire to become a good content writer. However, I'm not a content writer, so really I do not have much expertise on it. I would like to. Okay, Sushil now. Ishita Ganguly. Yeah, Ishita. So for self-published authors, do you have to opt for paid reviews only? How to receive channel reviews for experienced editors and book reviewers? Yeah, of course. So for self-published authors, in case you want to get genuine reviews from top publications, maybe from media houses like Times of India, the Statesman, etc., best way is to reach out to them yourself. So once you reach out to them yourself and you explain why your work needs to be highlighted in the media and why your book needs to be reviewed, they'll gradually try to understand your point. Because in case of self-publishing, what I learned is, you have to pay for reviews and for distribution. But in case of traditional publishing, the publishers who publish you, they generally handle this from experienced editors and book reviewers. But of course, if you're talking about a good self-published book, suppose I think you have written down the book called Stories from a City Called Calcutta. So you now need to explain to the editor or to the magazine feature person whom you're writing your work as to why this book is important, what it highlights, how the middle class section is being highlighted through this book, stories from a city called Calcutta. So this is when they try to understand. Usually go for the publications in the area which you've written upon. You've written on Kolkata, so it's better to go with publications and media houses present in Kolkata. You need to connect to them individually to be assured of a publication or feature in any of these media houses, or to get a genuine review for your book. I hope it helped, Ishita.
Yes, yes. I hope Ishita, like the answer which Souhardya gave helped you out. So just if you have any other questions, you can put in the comment box. And Souhardya, we can start. Like we left over somewhere, right? So we can start.
Yeah, sure.
You know where you left over on this topic?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Omkar. I can hear you.
Yes. So we can continue.
Okay, sure. So I was telling about the hybrid publishing. So usually I'll give you a simple difference on self-publishing, vanity publishing, and traditional publishing. Now, in case of self-publishing, what happens is the author ends up several pounds down with a pile of books that they cannot sell. Now you pay for all the copies of the books that are brought out from your publication house. Now, suppose 250 copies of your book are to be printed. So you have to pay for all those 250 copies without a guarantee on your investment, which is quite similar to self-publishing. But nowadays, self-publishing is much better than vanity, and I would recommend it myself, because in case of self-publishing, you've got Amazon KDP and Barnes Noble, where you have no risk, no absolute risk for any kind of investment. So you directly publish your work without the return of without any risks of without any risks of losing your money or your revenues, because you are assured that you will get somewhat, you get some appreciation from your reader as well, which I myself got, because I did not have to invest in case of Amazon, and I would definitely recommend that for a purpose. Now, another thing that Ishita asked me earlier was bookshop. So, if you're talking about the book fairs that are generally organized in various cities and parts of India, so various authors aspire to be up on the stage and launch their own books, also to have their books kept in various stalls that are usually noticed by people coming to the book fair. But what usually you do for this is, in cases of self-publishing or traditional publishing, as I said to Ishita earlier, it is better to approach by your own self rather than depending on someone to call you up, because you're not going to be called up until you are a really super hit author. And this is a major disadvantage of both self-publishing and vanity publishing, which does not really occur for traditional published authors. So this is what I think is all I wanted to say about the various aspects of publishing industry. And Omkar, do we have any questions up?
Uh, right now we don't have any, but we'll wait for a few questions. Till then, I haven't. Like, I wanted to ask you something, like how your journey has been up till now. I want to ask you that question as an
Well,
author.
fantastic. Yeah. So I first started publishing my first book. I did self-publishing through Amazon KDP when I was 13 years old. So I did my second book through Amazon KDP once again when I was 15. That is last year. And the second book, in fact, it gained major recognition because I was awarded the Fellowship of the Royal Asiatic Society and the India Book of Records, as a result of which I could go with Juggernaut in 2019 itself to self-publish my third book. But when as an author, you are always trying to grow yourself. You're always trying to evolve to changing customs, and to the changing environment. So, of course, you have this traditional publishing houses, and I took up various plots, as I said, Sushil earlier, and then you go with that. You go with traditional publishing houses initially, ultimately. So I have signed up with Rupa Publications India this year, and I hope my book released soon. Now, I think I have some questions from Sushil. I think there are times when things are not going as planned in author's life. How does an author overcome their difficult situations? What is their thinking process or mindset in difficult times? Okay, Sushil. So this is it is a very personal question. So when an author's life is very interesting, it's filled up with lots of mysteries. Like I'll give you an example of an author's life. So there are times when an author is disgusted, is frustrated. He gets the reader's block, which you call he does not want to read anymore, does not want to write anymore. Writer's block and reader's block both. So this happens to many. So the best ways to get rid of this is to travel, is to explore your inner mind, is to explore your inner self, and also to portray the characteristics that you have in yourself with the mindset or the characteristics that you want to portray to your character. For example, in case of Amish Tripathi's last book, which was called Ravan, the enemy of Aryabhatta. So I should not say this, but definitely then he portrayed various characteristics that he had in himself into the character that Ravan was portrayed as. So an author's life is full of mysteries, and it's really a very interesting world. I hope that I hope that I hope
Yes,
that
yes,
suffice.
it definitely, yes, yes, it definitely answered the question. And there was another question which was like asked by Sushil earlier. It was like how to be very energetic in life.
Being very energetic. I'm not really sure about this because this is not really related to publishing industry. But yeah, being energetic in life, you have to keep up to the works you're doing. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to understand what you're doing, and you have to love what you're doing. Basically, when you love your work, you get the whole amount of passion to go behind it. You get the passion to chase your dreams, to go after your aspirations, and that eventually leads you into being energetic. I hope that suffices.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. That advice would really help out the people who are watching this. And yeah, so guys, I have like shared the profile of Souhardya. Like it's shared on the screen, so you can go connect with him. He is an upcoming author at Rupa Publications. So his book is going to be published. And like Souhardya, I wanted to ask you like the books which you have written, like how did you like work on your English, how did you work on your vocabulary, what you used to do as an author, like to improvise yourself to get yourself into that zone of like writing a book or becoming an author. So how did you cope up with that, I want to ask you.
In case of vocabulary, since I write in the historical fiction genre, I have the best way to develop your vocabulary is to understand the various cultural customs and the various traditional things that went on in the era you're writing about. So I gave an example of this in the NewsX interview and India Today when I was being asked the same question. So what matters is if you're talking about canon or if you're talking about gun. So what we now regard as gun, if you're going to write as an author gun, it seems very awkward. If you're talking about historical fiction, and it seems absurd actually because gun did not exist at the time when you're talking about in history in the 15th or 16th century. You have to understand what you are wanting to express, which era you're talking about, which century you're writing about. If you're writing about 15th century, you have to use 15th century vocabularies, which is only possible when you research a lot, when you read lots of works by scholars and leading people who have written down in the same format, in your genre before you. So, for example, in my case, I have read works by Devdutt Patnaik, I have read works by Amish Tripathi, and also have inspiration from Manu S. Pillai and William Dalrymple. So this really helped me in developing vocabulary and understanding myself as to how to express my thoughts as an author. Yeah, this is a very good question. Yeah, how do you manage your time as an author? Well, managing the time, it's my, of course, other than being an author, I'm also a student. So at present, I'm studying in class 11. So I do have school studies to cope up with. But at times it becomes difficult, But then you have the 24 hours in a day, and I feel it's enough for you to cope up with what you're trying to do. Matlab, uh, even if you're an author, and also is not always writing down books or not always reading. So relaxation is definitely there. As for myself, I like to play games, to be very honest, and school studies are also there. So managing time is what you can do it yourself. It depends upon an author. It depends upon yourself as to how you manage your time.
I hope, Ishita, that answer helped you out. And yeah, so that was the last question which was asked. And to be honest, Savardia, like I want to thank you personally for like coming here, like devoting time from your busy schedule and like talking on a topic which is like completely new to all of us. Like most of us are, what you can say, into the engineering field, or some are into writing, just like Ishita is. So there are few people who are like actually interested into writing a book or like becoming an author, but there are few people who are like into engineering. But these, the things which you said, it really helped them out, I think so, because the, like right now it's very important to know about like the authors are, what you can say, if you are a book lover, you should always know like what is an author's perspective, and how does an author live his life or earn a living, or how is the like Indian publishing industry like working. Okay, and that was a complete demonstration of how the industry works, and it was completely, to be honest, it was kind of an interactive as well as a very good session hosted by you. And I wasn't expecting like people would actually interact, because I didn't knew that there are some people who are into like publishing books and stuff like that. But Ishita is one of them. Sushil is other. Like Sushil has been attending our sessions all the 5 days we have attended. So shout out to Sushil, and thank you so much, Souhardya. Like I can't say much more,
Thank you
but
so much.
just to thank you. Yes, and it was a superb session on the whole. And yeah, yeah. So there is a question from Sushil again. So he's asking, how do you research?
So if you're talking about my researches, so usually, since I told Omka a few minutes ago, since I write in historical fiction genre, so research becomes very simple when you're talking about the historical fiction, because you need to understand various manuscripts that have been written down by authors. You get lots of information in a compiled form in the recent books
Okay.
that are coming out. Uh,
Tula Hava.
yeah, hello Omkar, are you saying something?
No,
Omkar?
no, no. You continue. You
Okay,
continue.
okay. Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. Now you also have digital archives, you know. So you get lots of books on Google, on Google Books. You get lots of ebooks on Amazon, different places. So the topic which you're wanting to write on, you get lots of different perspectives into that from various places. Your articles on new on that same topic in newspapers, in magazines, you know. So these comes out as topics, because in each article or in each book that you read, you find out something different, you find out something unique, and you can compile everything together to create your own work. So that's what we do as authors. I hope that
Yeah,
solved your doubt,
Sushil.
Sushil.
Yeah, Sushil. Yeah, I hope that that answered the question. So Sushil, if you have any other questions, Sushil, Ishita, like we just have 2 to 3 minutes left on the clock. You can interact with Souhardya. He's there with us for the next 3 to 4 minutes. You can interact with him, and also feel free to check out our page. It is like our like Industry Inspired Talks LinkedIn page. We post a lot of content here. So make sure to check it out. This is an event which it is going to happen like like it is going to be delivered by Abhishek Sansarwal. So we come up with such events. So make sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button if you enjoy this session on the whole. If you are still enjoying, you can hit the like button. You can comment your favorite part, what you have learned. So it would actually help us in figuring out what kind of content you, what you can say, like to see on our channel. So make sure to, what you can say, comment, reach out to us, like reach out to Souhardya if you have any questions about like how to become an author, or what should be the approach. He's there to help you. Like the all the social handles of Souhardya is mentioned in the description box below. His Instagram profile, his LinkedIn profile. So do connect with him. Do ask him questions. He is there to help you whenever he is free. Yes, Souhardya. Like
Yeah,
how
thank you.
like did you enjoy?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me for this talk, Omkar. It
Yeah.
was really great
So
interacting with
I'll
you.
yes. So there is, this is a like comment from Sushil. He's thanking you.
Thank you, Sushil. Thank you so much for being here, listening to this talk. Thank you, Ishita, and all the best for your book. You know, so Ishita is an author also. She's got a newly released book called "Stories from a City Called Calcutta" that deals with middle class Bengali families, and I'm really looking
Okay.
forward to see the book's success.
Yeah. All the best. All the best, Ishita, for your book. All the very best from Industry Inspire Talks as well. I hope your book does well, and all the very best to Sauhardya as well for your book, which is going to be published in like with the help of Rupa Publications. So I want to wish you best of luck for your future as an author, and I hope that you, like, by your words and by your knowledge, you will definitely make an impact someday. Actually, you are doing it,
Thank you very
like,
much.
just being, yeah, just being a student, you are like, just being like of our age, like you start, just like you said, you started from when you were 13 years old, and that is what you can say, that sets an example to the students as well, who are like, or like who wants to become an author at a young age. Because if you have done it, they can do it too, because you had that approach, you were
Definitely.
dedicated enough. Yes. So, and thanks for sharing your experience, like how, like, about the books you published and stuff like that. I wish you all best of luck for all the books you have been, like, you are going to publish in future, and I hope that they, what you can say, trend in the market, and you, like, get the fame, because you are dedicated enough, you are deserving enough, and it is really a pleasure to have you as our day 5 speaker to end this today's Industry Expo 2k20. It could not be better if we didn't have you as our speaker. So, like, thanks for giving the audience a taste of the author, like what you can say, the, or like, a seminar from an author's perspective. It would, I think, I personally think it really helped me a lot, because I learned something new today, and that is a great thing. And all the things which you said were valuable, were knowledgeable, and from, like, spoken from experience. Okay, and
Yeah,
thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
and
Rupa.
one more thing,
All the
guys. One more thing, guys. Like, those who are, like, watching this right now, I'll just drop the link of the form in the description box. So just fill the form, the attendance form, so that you get the certificates for this session. So this is kind of a feedback form which you want to fill, where you actually like, talk about how your session experience was, and like, did you enjoy Industry Expo, and what do you feel about this set of 5-day event which we did basically with such industry experts. So make sure to fill the form. We'll wait for another 2-3 minutes. And Souhardya, I hope you're not getting late. You have like 2-3 minutes left on the clock. I know we are running
yeah.
out of time, but still, yeah. So, I saw a post which you made, like, you met an author. I checked that out on your LinkedIn profile, I guess. So how was your experience? Like, there was a post made by
I
you
couldn't
where you
hear you,
met
Omkar.
an author. Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I cannot understand you which post you're talking about, because I've already
Okay, so
posted so many things on it.
yeah. So you met someone from the industry, I guess. So you put a picture with him, and I don't know. Like, I
Okay.
checked that out.
Yeah, I was talking about Tamal
Did you get it?
Bandyopadhyay. Yeah, I got it. I posted it some days
Yes,
ago. His new
yes,
book is
yes,
being released. Yeah. So it was a fantastic experience.
yes, yes.
Tamal Bandyopadhyay sir. Tamal sir is from our own Midnapur. So I am a Midnapurian basically. So we stay at some distance from Kolkata. So Tamal Bandyopadhyay sir, he was also originally Midnapurian, though presently he's staying in Mumbai. Now he is usually into business and economics, and he's one of India's most respected business journalists. So basically, it was a pleasure meeting him, and we did have some talk on the Indian economy, the present circumstances revolving around the cultural developments in India, and also, and if you're talking about that purpose, the picture that you're showing me up on screen, that is with Amish Tripathi. So it was a picture from Filmy Loop, where they were talking that both of us are really, we are trying to revive the Indian ancient cultural heritage, and trying to bring that out a different format that will be most appealing to readers of today, because that is what you need to do when you're talking about heritage. If you're talking about heritage, people are not really interested in listening to you. So what you need to do is to bring that out in a format that would really enable today's youth to be more interested in reading about heritage or historical fiction, like Amish Tripathi sir is doing.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm unable to find that post, but still I am like, yeah. So I, like, your feed is all about, what you can say, Indian history. So you feel yourself connected with Indian history, I guess.
Yeah,
So this is the
I
poster, I guess.
yeah, this
Yes,
was the
let
book
let it
release
let it
poster.
load.
Okay. Yeah, this was the book deal announcement. Uh, the book deal announcement of Rupa.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it, and like, that's the reason why I was scrolling through your feed, so I can show it. Like, yes, this is, I guess, Ishita's book.
Yeah, this is Ishita's book,
Hello.
right? Yeah.
This
This is Ishita's. Yeah, stories from a city called Calcutta, right?
Yeah, and like all the best, Ishita, for your book. If you are watching the session right now, yeah, and shout out to you. Hope you do good as well in the industry, in the author industry, and all the best for the book you like have published. Like it's going to come out, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to come out soon. I'm working on the editing procedures now.
Yeah. So one more thing, guys, and like, like to you also as Souhardya and to everyone who is still watching, like to everyone, like for example, Sushil, like you attended all the 5 sessions, like all the 5 days. So this is to everyone like who attended all the 5 days. I want to what you can say you have done a pretty good job in this 5 days instead of like sitting at home. You devoted 1 hour in learning new things. So starting with product management, we had big data session. Then we had like build your brand, a personal branding session by Pooja ma'am. Yesterday we had a session about skill development, and today we had a session about like the publishing industry, or if you want to become an author. So that were like some 5 unique sessions which we like presented and we organized for you. So feel free to like fill the form which is in the description box. Let us know like how was your experience so that we can come up with the speakers whom you want us to feature on the channel, so that you like aspire someone else like who is in the industry and you want him to speak at our event. We can do that for you. You just have to reach out to us and tell us what is your need. Okay, and if you enjoyed this Industry Expo 2k20, like I'm very much like excited like about the events which we are like going to come up in future. So feel free to reach out to us, stay connected, follow our pages. All the social media handles are there in the description box, and also reach out to Souhardya. And thanks once again. Before we wrap up with this day 5, I want to thank you once again. And Souhardya, like lastly before we end, do you want to give some words of motivation to our audience? Like we have people watching. Like, do you want to give some motivation and then we end? How about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I would like to, I would not directly like to quote Swami Vivekananda, but I should say, yeah, of course. So you need to work on what you're passionate about until the moment you achieve your goal. So it is perseverance that matters, at the end of the day. And you should not procrastinate at any cost, because this is what you are born for. So, Omkar.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And Sawardia, like without wasting further time, we'll just wrap up with the event. And like to everyone, thank you so much for attending all these 5 days. And I hope to see you again with another event, another webinar which we are conducting. I hope to see you as our audience. You have been a good audience, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for attending the event. And we'll see you guys in the next event. Till then, keep learning, keep inspiring, and keep growing. And take care of yourself. Health is very much important, so take care in this tough time. Try to attend such sessions and like gain knowledge from the industry and be industry ready. So thank you so much, and we'll catch